You're 19. You just got your first real paycheck. Not the babysitting money, not the cash tips from the summer job. An actual paycheck with your name printed on it and taxes already taken out. You open your banking app. The number sitting there is $100 more than you're used to seeing, and you have exactly two choices standing in front of you, even though it doesn't feel like a choice at all. It feels like nothing. It feels like $100. You could spend it. New shoes, a night out. Nobody would remember this $100 in a week, not even you. Or you could open an investing app you downloaded on a whim last month and never touched. Put the $100 in. Watch it turn into a single number on a screen that does absolutely nothing exciting. No fireworks, no confirmation that you did something smart. Just a number that says $100, sitting there, looking exactly as unimpressive as the bill it came from. Hold that decision in your head, because this isn't a story about $100. It's a story about the version of you that exists 40 years after that decision, and the version of you that doesn't. You're 20. A year has passed. You've added a little more when you could. Some weeks $20, some weeks nothing. And the balance sits at $740. You put in about $700 of that yourself. The market gave you the other $40 while you weren't looking. $40. You could laugh at that number. Your roommate spent more than that on a weekend. But you don't laugh because you're not doing this for the $40. You're doing it because you noticed something. The $100 didn't disappear the way every other $100 in your life had disappeared. It just sat there, quietly refusing to vanish. You're 22, out of school now, first real job, first real paycheck that isn't part-time money. The balance is $3,200. You've started adding more consistently. Not a lot, just whatever's left after rent, and some months that's barely anything. A friend asks what you're doing with your money. You tell him. He says that's cute and starts telling you about a stock his cousin told him about that's going to triple by summer. You nod. You don't argue. You've learned by now that the boring thing doesn't need defending. It just needs time. 6 months later, his stock is down 60%. He doesn't bring it up again. You don't either. You're 25. The balance is $11,400. You've contributed about $9,000 of your own money across 6 years, an amount so small most of them wouldn't even show up if someone tried to list them individually. The rest, over $2,000, the market handed you for doing nothing but not touching it. This is the year you almost stop. Rent goes up, a car repair eats a month's savings. You open the app and think about pulling some out just to breathe easier for a bit. You don't. You just stop adding for 2 months instead. And even standing still, the number keeps inching up without you. That's the first time you understand something you can't quite put into words yet. That the money you already put in keeps working whether or not you're paying attention to it. You're 30, 10 years since that first $100. The balance is $34,600. You've put in around $24,000 total. The market has added over $10,000 on top of it, more than the entire amount you invested in your first 5 years combined. You bring it up at a work happy hour, half joking, and a coworker asks how you managed to save that much. You tell him it wasn't really saving. It was never touching the first $100, and then never touching the next one, and then forgetting you were even doing it. He says he wishes he'd started earlier. You don't tell him that earlier was 10 years ago, at $100, and he had the exact same app on his phone that you did. You're 35, 15 years in. The balance is $78,000. You've contributed about $38,000 of your own money across 15 years. The market's contribution, $40,000, has quietly overtaken your own. The money you didn't put in is now bigger than the money you did. This is also the year the market has a bad stretch, a real one. Headlines everywhere use the word crash. Your balance drops by almost a quarter in 6 weeks. It's the most money you've watched disappear in a single month, and none of it required you to do anything. You don't sell. Not because you're brave. You're not. Your stomach is in knots the whole time. But because pulling it out means admitting the last 15 years meant something they didn't. So you leave it. You keep adding the same small amount you always have, buying in while everyone else is running. You're 40, 20 years since that first $100. The balance is $161,000. You've put in roughly $52,000 across 2 decades. The other $109,000 is money you never earned an hour for. Somewhere around this age, something shifts that you don't notice happening at all. The account starts growing more in a single strong year than you could add by hand if you doubled what you were putting in. You're not steering this thing anymore. You're riding it. A coworker gets laid off that spring. Good at his job. No warning, gone. He has 3 weeks of savings and a mortgage that doesn't care. You have a number sitting in an app you haven't opened in months. You don't say anything about it. You just understand for the first time that the $100 was never really about getting rich. It was about never being 3 weeks away from panic. You're 50, 30 years in. The balance is $412,000. You've put in about $84,000 total. The market has handed you $328,000, 4 times what you put in with your own hands. You go to a reunion that year. Someone you went to high school with pulls up in a car worth more than your first house. He talks about it for 20 minutes. You drive home in the same car you've had for 6 years, the one that owes you nothing. And you don't think about the car at all. You think about the fact that nobody at that reunion knows what's sitting in your account, and you're not sure you'd tell them even if they asked. You're 59, 40 years since that first $100. The balance is $1,010,000. Sit with that breakdown for a second because it's the entire story compressed into 2 numbers. Of that $1 million, the amount you actually put in with your own money across 40 years, every $20 here, every $50 there, every month you almost quit, is $112,000. The other $898,000 is growth, money you never worked an hour for. Money that showed up while you were living an ordinary life, making an ordinary salary, worrying about ordinary things. You didn't get lucky. You didn't pick a winning stock. You didn't time anything. You put in $100 when you were 19 because it felt like nothing, and then you never stopped, and 40 years turned nothing into something you can't say out loud at a dinner table without the room going quiet. Now, here's the part almost nobody tells you. Go back to that 19-year-old standing in front of the banking app. Change one thing. He waits 5 years to start. Not because he's irresponsible, just busy, just distracted, just planning to get to it eventually. Same $100 start, same contributions after that, same 40 years, just 5 years later. His balance at the end isn't $1,010,000. It's around $580,000. Same effort, same discipline, same money put in almost the entire way. He's missing over $400,000, not because he did anything wrong, but because those 5 years in the beginning were doing more work than any 5 years that came after them. That's the part that doesn't feel real until you see it in numbers. The first $100 isn't worth $100. It's worth whatever 40 years of compounding turns it into. And every year you wait to start isn't a delay. It's a subtraction from the very end of the story, the part where the money was finally working hardest. Somewhere right now, someone is 19 years old staring at $100 in a banking app, trying to decide if it's worth doing anything with. It feels like nothing. It will always feel like nothing. That's not a flaw in the plan. That's the entire plan. The amount was never supposed to feel like it mattered. It was only ever supposed to start.